Hey guys, what's going on, man? It's good to be back. Obviously, we're at the weekend, which means it's another time for another edition of the American Hotspur here on Stateside Footy. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. I hope you guys have enjoyed your week. I hope it was a productive week. Because let me tell you, man, we all work up to this moment for the weekends, right? And I probably, just like you, I was probably hoping that we would have a new arrival through the door for our beloved Tottenham Hotspur, but apparently that wasn't the case because apparently we don't know how to negotiate. Sad but true. But be that as it may, it's good to have you guys along. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button because we are in a race to 1,000 subs, and the quicker we can get to the 1,000 mark, man, we're going to be able to do some really good stuff. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe buttons. All right, man. So let's get with it. As I mentioned at the top of the show, that again, man, I was really hoping that we would be talking about a new signing this week. But be that as it may, Tottenham Hotspur figured out a way to take the embarrassment of Morgan Gibbs-White and then double down on that embarrassment because, listen, man, the fact remains that Eberechi Eze absolutely teed this up for us. We were in a position where we had agreed on a 5-year deal with Eberechi Eze. Terms were met. Weekly wages were met. And all Spurs had to do was pay the freight to Crystal Palace, £68 million, and this was a done deal. But as the week progressed and as some of these things started trickling out, of course, I got a hold of my, my contacts over there. And it turns out that Spurs were actually trying to give them £20 million less and Richarlison in the deals. Crystal Palace said, whoa. That wasn't the deal. We had everything worked out. And now all of a sudden you're trying to throw, Richarlison into the mix. Of course, they had no use for Richarlison. And then all of a sudden, boom, Arsenal sneaks up right behind. And all of a sudden this thing goes haywire. And so now all of a sudden it looks like Eze is going to be heading to Arsenal. And it's unfortunate, too, because this thing, again, was so teed up for Tottenham Hotspur. Again, a 5-year deal was in place for Eze. Personal terms were agreed, up to £175,000 per week on a 5-year deal. And, of course, Tottenham figured out a way to completely just fumble the bag. And it's absolutely aggravating because, again, I didn't think there was going to be a deal that was going to be as easy. I guess you can say in terms of exactly what Crystal Palace was wanting. It seems like Spurs understood. And then all of a sudden things go sideways because they decided to get cute at the last minute. They decided to get goddamn cute at the last minute, which begs the question for me, what exactly is the transfer strategy of this fucking goddamn football club? I'd like to know. I would really like to know because, to be honest with you, it just does not make sense. Where was the contingencies in place? Right? Not just for Eze, but also for Morgan Gibbs-White. What was the contingency? What exactly was the layout of this summer window to get from point A to point B? I would really absolutely love to know. It begs the question because I'd love to. Seriously, maybe you guys can help me out on this one. Because again, when I look at, I hate to say this, when I look at Liverpool, when I look at City, when I look at Arsenal, I look at how these teams operate, and it's crystal clear that they absolutely have a plan in place for exactly where they're going to improve the team, but they also have contingencies in place in case of injury. And of course, that I know Arsenal is saying that it had nothing to do with the Kai Havertz situation, but of course. That obviously was the reason why they last minute swooped into the 11th hour to steal Eze away from us. But the reality is, it's like this team literally is operating without a compass. They're operating without a map. And I would absolutely love for somebody to tell me what the hell is going on. Because now, we're like, what? A little over a week? We're 10 days away from this window closing. 9 days. And Spurs have wasted a good solid month, a month and a week chasing down 2 players and only to be left absolutely embarrassed. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing the way that the Morgan Gibbs White debacle happened. But in this case, it's even worse. The Eberechi Eze debacle is far and away worse than Morgan Gibbs White, because you can understand exactly what Forrest was trying to do by trying to pump the brakes, because they had wanted to get Morgan Gibbs White on a long-term extension for well over a year. That was a known fact. And so they muddied the waters just enough for them to come in and try to make that offer. And of course, Morgan Gibbs White accepted it. But with this deal, Eze had already agreed to terms, personal terms. Spurs knew exactly what Crystal Palace wanted, and it looked like they were willing to pay the freight. And then at the last minute, they get cute. And I don't blame Crystal Palace for pulling back, right? Because at the end of the day, I don't think they had any. I don't think they had any need for Richarlison, and I don't think Richarlison himself would have actually accepted a move to Crystal Palace. And so it was, it was a moot point to try to even do this. They absolutely fumbled this in every single direction. And it begs the question. Maybe you guys in the chat can help me on this one. Number one, what exactly is the plan? What is the transfer strategy? What is the plan? What are the contingencies? That's the first question I have. And I would love to hear it from you guys as well, too, because I'm at an absolute loss. The second thing is, what is Johan Lang still doing here? Because now this is the second straight window where he has absolutely done nothing to really radically increase the talent on the, within the starting 11 and also within the first team. That is a fact. Last summer, essentially waited to the end to bring in Dominic Solanke, but he's also had two winter windows as well too. Last winter was even worse than the winter before. Right? So again, I just don't understand. I just do not understand the incompetence. I do not understand why they would do this to themselves, knowing that they absolutely need a massive upgrade at this position. I just do not get it. But I don't know, man. Maybe there's some guys out there. Maybe you guys out there can kind of clue me in, because at the end of the day, man, being somebody who has, been around football operations and been around, general managers here in the state, I can tell you, at least from this side of the pond, I can tell you exactly how transfer strategies move. Right? Generally speaking, the summer window begins when the winter window closes, and they know exactly who's leaving. They know exactly the positions that need to be upgraded, and from that, their advanced scouting departments bring in names that, number one, fit the environment and fit the club. Number two, fit their financials. And from that, you organize the players that you're going to target from 1 to 5. And then you also have contingencies in case of, in other positions in case of injuries. And such was the case when we lost James Madison. And now all of a sudden we have to pivot. But the pivot didn't work. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe we might be able to, get El Canoes from Leicester City. I wouldn't be opposed to it. It seems to be a type of player that's in our price range. Who knows exactly how that's going to play out? But that being said, Spurs have 9 days now, 9 days to fill 2 positions, and it seems like we're farther away in this time period. We're farther away than we are closer actually to getting this team, better. I just don't understand exactly what the hell our transfer strategy is. I do want to talk about this real quick because I got word today that Spurs are still trying to nail down Savino. And from Manchester City. And of course, we face Manchester City, and a little bit later in the show, we're going to talk about Manchester City and exactly what I'm going to be expecting from Manchester City tomorrow against Spurs. But that being said, Spurs are still in pursuit of Savino. I get the impression that number one, I don't think City wants to deal with Spurs. I get that impression so very much because, again, I think Spurs have put in they put in two formal offers, and I think both have been rejected. The latest one was for 60.5, and Manchester City wants 67.5. So Spurs and City are only $7 million off on Savino, and considering the position that Spurs are in, this isn't necessarily City trying to take advantage. I don't think that's what this is. I just think that I just think that in this position, what they're asking is not exactly unreasonable, considering that Spurs absolutely have nothing down that left-hand side at the moment, and I think that was made abundantly clear against Burnley. Just the way that Spurs were counterattacking, how they were trying to move the ball down that right-hand side. It's obvious that they need a massive upgrade on that left-hand side. And bringing in a guy like Savino makes a tremendous amount of sense at this point. And again, they're only $7 million off. And the question is, are Spurs going to pull the trigger on that and just meet the demand of what City is asking? And I don't think it's a large sum. This isn't like, 10 to 20 million difference. This is 7 million. And I understand that maybe that might be a little too pricey for what Spurs are looking for. But that being said, it's like, to get a guy like Savino this late in the window, 67.5 million pounds is not exactly exactly the worst type of offer. And of course, you're going to be able to get him in for the long haul for the season. And of course, it gives him a massive upgrade on that left-hand side. So those things are continuing to develop. I know that, things that have been reported may have been blown a little out of proportion, but according to my contact, Spurs are still very much interested in Savino. And I think that, if they are willing to step up and meet that asking price, they'll get that deal done very quickly. The question is whether or not Daniel Levy is going to meet that price. I don't know. The way that things have, the way that things have continued to operate, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see a scenario where they're going to get 2+ guys through the window in the last 9 days of this. I just can't see it. I really just don't. But that being said, Spurs are still interested in Savino. They are 7 million pounds off. And again, the question is who's going to move first? Is our City going to just say thank you, but no, because you had your opportunity, or Spurs going to actually meet that asking price? I would probably assume that as the days continue to tick, I would probably assume that Spurs just might get desperate enough to actually say yes. The other piece of news is that Spurs are ready to make a formal offer for Nico Paz, the center attacking mid. And I believe he is a Real Madrid product. It looks like Spurs have been kicking the tires on Nico Paz for a good portion of the summer. And I think now, considering that not only did Morgan Gibbs-White end up with egg on the face, but now Eberechi Eze has left Spurs with egg on the face. And now all of a sudden, they're going to try to pivot here for Nico Paz. I've heard numbers as high as 70 million for him. I don't know how realistic this one is, but they're going to try to make a formal offer for Nico Paz. I actually wouldn't mind this. I think Nico's actually a very good player, plays a position of the need. But that being said, he's also plays with flair. Dude's good on both feet. And he's exactly that type of creative outlet this team needs, not just for the season, but also for next season as well, too, once that position continues to upgrade. But that being said, that is what is going on right now for Nico Paz. The question is this going to happen today? Is this going to happen tomorrow? That is something that I will definitely let you guys know as soon as I actually get this coming in from my contacts. But I do know that Spurs absolutely love Nico. The question is will Paratici try to grease the wheels to make this one happen? Because as we've seen with Johan Lang, that dude literally cannot negotiate his way out of the box. And it's cost Spurs absolutely greatly this summer. And two players that actually should have been holding up Spurs shirts by now but because that dude is absolutely incompetent, now all of a sudden we have to pivot potentially get a guy like Nico Paz. So we'll see how that goes. I do want to talk about this because I actually heard conflicting reports this afternoon that Real Madrid had accepted a loan offer for Rodrigo with Spurs. Turns out it's completely bogus. That is absolutely not true. As a matter of fact, Real Madrid, from what I heard, don't think that Rodrigo is the type of player that should go to Tottenham. So all of that's absolutely bogus. And I actually had to ferret that out through my contacts just to make sure that what I actually heard initially was absolutely bogus. So as far as it is right now, Spurs actually have not even made a loan offer to Real Madrid. So that right there is off the table. So the question is number one, how is this going to play out the rest of the summer? And I would love for you guys to let me know as well too. Are you guys still at this position right now where you think it's going to be 2? Do you guys think it's going to be 2 through the door between now and the end of the window? Because I actually don't. I think Spurs have wasted so much time, so much valuable time this summer, trying to get in some of their targets that they actually missed it by not having contingency plans in place. Me personally, I just don't even think they really had a strategy for this summer. I think I think there were names that they had been scouting. And for the most part, I just don't think they had a cohesive plan for this summer. And I think it's cost them dearly. And again, let me know how you guys feel about the summer window, because me personally, the change for Tottenham, guys, those guys are starting to sound a little louder in my, in my peripheral. But that being said, it was absolutely devastating, man. This summer has been absolutely devastating. It started out looking somewhat promising, but that being said, when you fumble Morgan Gibbs-White, when you fumble Eberechi Eze, at this point, at this stage in time, now all of a sudden accountability has to come in the form of a firing. Because I swear to God, man, Johan Lang has absolutely fucked this team up. Absolutely. And that being said, I mean, the buck stops with him. He's the one that actually has to have plans and strategies in place in order for this to come to fruition. And now we have a body of work that suggests that the incompetence is absolutely real. And remember, he was the one that got demoted at West Ham because he couldn't build a squad that was good enough to get them into the top 4. He leaves, comes here, and now all of a sudden they're a Champions League team. And now we're struggling just to sign the crumbs. And so as far as I'm concerned, man, heads have to roll. This summer was absolutely embarrassing. But moreover, understand that players and agents talk. Okay, players and agents talk. And when this happens, you don't think guys like Nico Paz aren't watching, or an El Canus isn't watching. A lot of these players are absolutely watching because their agents are telling them to pay attention, especially if they had made contact to gauge interest. Like, I don't think the weight of being in the Champions League even matters anymore. I don't think the Europa League trophy matters anymore. What matters is the stability and also the professionalism. Right? You wonder whether or not Spurs are absolutely professional. But again, before we get into the next one, I do have to say that, again, I don't think I've ever seen a deal this good go wrong so quickly. And of course, I'm talking about Eze, because again, man, he agreed to personal terms. It was a 5-year deal, and they knew exactly what Crystal Palace wanted. And in the 11th hour, they tried to get cute, and then that's it, man. No deal. Like, they absolutely fucked that one up, and it's unfortunate too. It's unfortunate because you know what? Eberechi Eze was willing to come here, and he had made it known. And instead of just paying the £68 million that was needed, now all of a sudden he's playing for Arsenal. It's unbelievable, man. But that being said, we do have good news though, because Christian Romero, the captain, has signed a 4-year extension through 2029, and this is absolutely good news for a number of reasons. And I will give you from both sides. From the actual Spurs playing side, it means that the captain is going to be here through the 2028-2029 season, and we're going to keep him through his prime years at N17. And I absolutely love this because I never once thought that Spurs should ever let this guy leave through the door. He is literally one of the best center backs in the world, and now he's going to stay. He's going to stay with Spurs, and I think this should make everyone happy, especially the fans. And I know there's a lot of fans that actually thought, they wanted him to see him go because of that dumb report that or that dumb interview he gave last year. And so people took it for face value that he wanted to go play in Spain. And it's like, dude, pump your brakes, right? Because that's not what he was saying at all. He just said that eventually he would like to play in Spain. That wasn't now or next year or the year after, right? It's on his bucket list. But that being said, the captain signs a 4-year extension, and I'm checking to find out exactly what the money is, and I will definitely get that to you at some point. Let's find out right now. Let me get a hold of my contact. All right, there we go. And I will have that. I will have that to you in just one moment. But that being said, man, when you have these type of talents, these are what I consider generational talents. And when you get them, and especially when you consider Mickey Van de Ven right next to him, you actually have a center back pairing that within the next, 3 years, if these two develop that chemistry, you're talking about a center back pairing that's probably going to go down as one of Spurs' best center back pairings. I already think they're better than Alderweireld and Vertonghen. Me personally, I think they're talented. I think they possess better talent. I think they're better on the ball. I think they have better pace, and I think they're better for Spurs now than what Vertonghen and Alderweireld were back in the Pochettino days. But that being said, when you have these type of players, you don't let them go. Spurs eventually had to draw a line in the sand and said, listen, man, we're not letting our best players leave, right? And I'm glad that Spurs finally made that decision by keeping their best players around. Now, what this also means for Christian Romero is that now that he is signed, it just means that his value goes up. Now, this is not to say that Spurs won't sell him. That's not what I'm saying at all. If anything, what this extension means is that his value goes up and the money is reflective of where his talent is in the global stage right now. So, for instance, let's just say that in 2 years, and if things continue to progress with him, like he goes to the World Cup and just absolutely kills it with Argentina. Let's just put that out there. Let's just say that. What this actually means is that, if Atletico Madrid or Real Madrid came in a couple years down the road after the World Cup, and of course he plays a pivotal role in then helping them win the World Cup, and of course he has a great season this year. All that's going to mean is that his value continues to climb to the point where it's not going to be unheard of to think that Romero will then go for 80+ million pounds in the transfer market. So that's what this extension means for him personally, is that his value just continues to climb. So I think it's a win-win for both, and I think that Romero has definitely earned this extension. And again, when you have this type of talent, you cannot let him leave. I don't care what anybody says, because for too long Spurs have let their best players leave, and it was understandable why they left, 100%. And I don't necessarily disagree with it, but eventually Spurs have to draw that line in the sand and say, "Listen, dude, we're not letting you go." I hate to say it, man. It just is what it is. We're trying to win trophies here, and you're a very big part of that. So I'm happy that Romero is signed through 2029, and in just a few moments I'll let you know exactly what that money, what the length of that contract is. What the value of that contract is in just a second. So, again, just to recap, it's been just an absolutely embarrassing week for Spurs in the transfer window. A player in Eze that should have easily been signed. And of course, Spurs figure out a way to make it completely Spursy by letting him out of their grasp as he ends up going to Arsenal. And of course, I've heard that he's actually going to be taking medicals with Arsenal. So that's pretty much all she wrote. Now, whether or not Spurs would be willing to come in trying to come in over the top. Whether or not Spurs in the last, I guess you can call it the 11th hour, try to come over the top and absolutely blow Arsenal out of the water by giving them more money. Who knows? I think at this point, I think it's over. And it's unfortunate as well, too. But that being said, man, I'd love to know it. And I'm curious to know what you guys think as well, too. Just exactly what was going on this summer. What is the strategy? I just don't understand. It just does not make any sense for me, but it is what it is. All right. So tomorrow at 7:00 Eastern here in the United States, Tottenham Hotspur will travel to the Etihad to face Manchester City. And of course, last season, coming off the FIFA break, Spurs went to the Etihad and absolutely destroyed Manchester City 4-0 in a game that was essentially all James Maddison. But of course, different story. New coach. And of course, we're missing a few key players for this one as well, too. And so the question is just exactly how this team is going to be looking against a Manchester City team that looked absolutely awesome against Wolves last week, made it look absolutely easy, and whether or not this team has the capability of, I'm not going to say replicating it because I don't think that's going to happen. I don't see a scenario where Spurs score more than 2 tomorrow. But that being said, we're going to get into it because I think it's absolutely important. And we're going to start from the Manchester City side because last week against Wolves, this is how they set up. And there's no doubt that Manchester City are a very good side. When you factor in some of their summer signings, Tajani Reinders, and I think they got Ryan Cherokee as well too. This team looks good. This team plays good. And if there's any indication exactly how that team is going to try to attack Spurs, generally speaking, they like to do everything centrally. But that being said, they're not shy to attack down the wings as well too. So the question is exactly what type of Spurs team can we expect tomorrow against Manchester City? And I got to be honest with you guys, I don't know. I would like to think that I think the first thing that I think we can expect is defensively, Spurs are going to be compact and they're going to be absolutely organized. The last couple matches we have seen against PSG and against Burnley, they were absolutely phenomenal off the ball. Defensively, I don't think there was any. I don't think anybody here can say that they weren't impressed with the physicality. In 1v1 challenges, 50-50 balls. I think everybody was kind of impressed with that, right? But that's only 50% of the equation, right? Because they spend so much time off the ball, they're essentially putting themselves in counterattacking positions. And because they only attack up one side of the pitch, it really puts them at a disadvantage because, quite honestly, you're going to have to give Manchester City different looks. The other problem is we don't have a 10. We don't have anybody that's going to be able to handle the creative outlet centrally. And to me, that's a huge problem because you understand exactly what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Manchester City are going to overload the right, and they're probably going to put 2 on Kudus. And they're going to try to take Kudus, off the pitch. It's as simple as that, right? So there's going to have to be other outlets for creativity with this team coming forward. The question is how many times they're going to come forward, because I would probably assume that Spurs are not going to be on the front foot for a large majority of this match tomorrow. I'm sorry, it's just true. Manchester City is going, are going to impose their will offensively, right? Spurs have no problem just giving them the ball and letting them operate. The question is, number one, are they going to make it easy for City to essentially move really centrally, because they were absolutely brilliant against Wolves in that department. 100%. Right. The one thing that I liked with Spurs last week was their high press. Yes, they allowed Burnley to try to get up the pitch, but systematically they were not making it easy. Right. They were clogging passing lanes. They were essentially forcing Burnley to make pinpoint passes in order to get up the pitch. And at times they did, but at times they struggled, really struggled getting forward, right? So that I would probably assume that the plan for Spurs essentially is to press the ball carrier up the pitch and try to force him onto the wings. Because if Manchester City has that ability to essentially sit outside the 18-yard box and just ping balls into the box to Haaland, it's going to be a very long game. I'm sorry, it just is what it is, right? So Spurs actually are going to have to be able to grind for 90 minutes, and they're going to have to be able to press high and force Manchester City into turnovers. It's probably going to be their only way that they're going to be able to set up and counter correctly and try to get their best goal scorers involved. I would assume, because that's at this stage, the way that Spurs attack lines up right now, there's nobody that Thomas Frank can actually trust off that left hand side. It's just not there, right? And Jed Spence is not as far as utilizing, I guess you can say like a left wing back situation to get high up the pitch and try to play balls in. I'll be the first to say it, right? Destiny Udogie is just a little bit better at that than Jed Spence. I'm not saying that Jed can't do it. What I like about Jed is that his end speed, right? Because he is able to skin his man to get around the corner, right? But his crossing ability sometimes is left to be desired. But that being said, like that is the option on the left. I would probably find it hard to believe that Matisse Tell will be starting. I just don't think that's going to happen. Maybe Wilson Odobert, maybe, but that's a problem, right? Because we know exactly how Spurs are going to try to attack up the right hand side, unless they use that left wing as a little bit of an inside forward attacking post, right? And then maybe Kudus and Pedro Porro start playing balls in from the right hand side, maybe. But that being said, I mean you're putting yourself in a position where you're one dimensional for the entire 90 minutes, and that's not a good recipe for success against a team like Manchester City, who will crowd the box, right? They're not going to make it easy for Spurs to get legit shots on target. They're gonna do their best to make Spurs actually have good quality and put good quality shots on. I just don't think that this is actually this is not a match right now where Spurs are coming into where they actually have a realistic shot, right? For me, the best case scenario is like maybe they can hold their own defensively and hold City to 1 or 2, and maybe they can get lucky by leaving the Etihad with like a 1-1 or a 2-2 draw. Quite honestly, because I just don't know how this is going to come. I don't know how we're going to consistently get down the pitch and put balls in the back. I just don't see it. I don't know. Right. The other question that I have for you guys is, how legit was that last week for Richarlison? Like, I would love to think that maybe this is something better, right? That maybe Richarlison, that breakthrough is going to be something where now we can actually use him correctly as a little bit of a fox in the box. We're not only playing balls into Richarlison, but also potentially using him as a decoy as well too. That could potentially free up somebody on the left to get played in, maybe even Kudus on the right. But at this stage, it's kind of weird, right? I just don't know. I don't know what that was last week from Richarlison. I just don't know. Again, I wonder if that was legit. That maybe this is, that might have been like a little bit turning of the page for him. Now, granted, I was happy that Richarlison, bagged a brace last week. I thought it was absolutely well deserved for some of the way that he played in the preseason, where he had a lot of near misses. He was pretty close in the preseason, so it was nice to see him break out a little bit. But for me, I don't know if you can take anything away from that match against Burnley, considering that Burnley's defense is just not all that great. And I would probably assume that against Manchester City, they're not going to allow him to attack channels that easily. They're not going to allow him to camp in the channels. I just can't envision a scenario where Manchester City, Pep Guardiola is going to allow that back four to sit there and allow Richarlison to do that. So it's going to be imperative that Spurs attack smartly. And what does that mean? Potentially using their center backs correctly. Wouldn't mind it. Playing balls over the top, wouldn't mind it. I think that will definitely help. But they can't just be costly. I mean, they can't just take errant chances and coughing up possession. That just can't. If you're going to attack, it has to be brilliant. It has to be calculated, and it has to be swift, right? And again, I just don't know if Richarlison is going to be able to have that kind of flexibility to camp in channels. I don't know. But that being said, I'm curious to know what you guys think about this as well, too. What did you guys make of Richarlison's performance last week? As good as it was, for me, I'm the type of guy that has to take a step back and look at it for what it was. A good performance against Burnley. But these are the matches that if you want to, I guess you can say, if you're Richarlison and you want to rewrite the narrative of what you have been at Tottenham Hotspur, these are the matches in which you need to step up. These are the matches where, as cool as that was against Burnley, can you do that against Manchester City at the Etihad? Maybe. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting, right? Because I think we all know how City's going to attack. Pep Guardiola likes to pass the ball. It's quick passes, one touch and then run. That's just the style of tiki-taka, right? Quick ball movement, good runs, open spaces. Try to exploit that open space and get balls into the box. And I would probably assume that you're going to see that quite a bit. If I had to take an educated guess for tomorrow, I would think that Manchester City will probably finish with anywhere between 63 to 68% of the possession. If I had to take a guess. It's just the way that they play. I mean, it all depends on how Spurs set up defensively. But that being said, would you guys be surprised if they went to that 3-5-2 tomorrow? With Solanke and Richarlison up top? I don't know, man. I don't think I would necessarily mind it. But that being said, for Spurs, it starts on the defensive side of the ball. I'll just say that. Because for a fact they're going to concede the ball. I do not see a situation where what happened last year is repeated. I just don't see that. It just is what it is, man. This is we're not playing an Ange Ball type of situation where it actually allows us to get forward with ease. That's not the style in which we play. And I think that has been made evident throughout the course of the preseason and, of course, now against Burnley, that we are a counter-attacking team. And we set up first defensively. Just is what it is, man. And, the question is this going to be a back three of Danso, Romero, and Van de Ven? Or is this going to be a back four? And I think in the case of Manchester City, considering the weapons in which they have at their disposal, again, look at it, right? Erling Haaland just on his own is a dude that he literally constantly has to be marked. But the crazy thing about it is when you look at this and just the way that this team operates at Nori, Reinders, Doku, they can come at you from so many goddamn different angles. So many goddamn different angles that Spurs are going to have to be accountable in this one. So I don't know, man. I'm curious to know what you guys think. I mean, is this a situation where, like PSG, all of a sudden Spurs came out with a back three? I don't think it would be that bad of an idea, just considering the man marking abilities of a guy like Kevin Danto, who's actually an underrated killer. Having a back three, and then of course having your two two fullbacks playing a little deeper. I think at this stage, I think it's obvious that a guy like Jedi Spence is very good in 1v1 situations. And what makes him more impressive is the fact he's doing it off the left side. His ability to eat up space and not give wingers the ability to create and put balls in is absolutely a plus for the side. And then having a little bit of cover there for Pedro Porro as well too. Me personally, I think this is probably a game where it actually makes sense to play a back three, having five at the back defensively, and just absolutely crud the middle of the pitch and not allow them to play ball centrally. I don't know. And of course, in a 3-5-2, it doesn't require a 10. Now, granted, it helps. But that being said, for me, the way that Spurs score goals are going to be off the counter, off the quick counter, which means systematically pressing the ball carrier prior to them hitting the midline. If Spurs can press high and continue to do it for 80, 85 minutes, and if they're able to get turnovers high up the pitch and put themselves in a position where they can maybe score a set piece or two, a la PSG, I would be absolutely happy. Because from the run of play, how do they score goals? I'm basing this off the assumption that they're gonna overload the right hand side to try to take Kudus out of the off the pitch, and that's actually kind of an easy thing to do. Essentially, just locking down the wing, and forcing Spurs to play back. I don't know, but I do know that. To me, that's going to be the key of victory tomorrow. From a defensive stand, in order to win, it's going to start from a defensive standpoint. They're going to have to be even better than they were against PSG. And to be honest with you, they were absolutely brilliant for 85 minutes in that match. And I thought they were pretty solid last week too against Burnley. But in this instance, against a team that can attack you and kill you from every single angle, to play in a back five probably makes the most sense for tomorrow, especially considering the weapons that Manchester City is going to. They're unbelievable, man. The fact that they were able to get Reinders through the door, and we saw exactly last week just exactly what Reinders did against Wolves. And I understand it's against Wolves. But that being said, it's just that quick one-touch passing, and then your ability to get into the box off the first step, putting themselves in positions for high-value shots. For me, that's Pep Guardiola football, man. So from that standpoint, yeah, I look at this and I'm just like, if there was any opportunity to play in a back three this early in the season, it would be this one. Because you just know exactly that Spurs are going to concede the ball. They're just going to let them have the ball. And again, the way that I look at this, would I be surprised if they finish with 63 to 68% possession? Not at all. Not at all. I just don't think Spurs have the numbers to consistently get forward. It just is what it is. Let's see. So let's go ahead and get into my predicted starting lineups for tomorrow. In goal, I'm going to start with obviously with Vicario. I don't think there's any doubt that Vicario is the number one on this team. I know there's a lot of fans out there that love Kinski, but that being said, in a match like this one, you need that veteran presence, and Vicario is going to be in net tomorrow, 100%. In my back three, it's going to be Danso, Romero, and Van de Ven. My midfield five, obviously on the right hand side, it's going to be Pedro Porro. The inside is probably going I'm going to say, Polina, Betancourt, and Polina, Betancourt, and Sarr as the midfield three. On the left-hand side, obviously, Jed Spence, and up two, I have two at top. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was Solanke and Richarlison starting both. I actually think that Spurs are going to come out in a 3-5-2 tomorrow because it makes absolute sense, especially considering the opponent. And I would probably assume that off the it also gives Spurs a little bit more options off the bench as well too. Unless they want to roll with what Richarlison and Kudus up top to begin. Which again, I mean, depending on how you want to play this, I think Solanke's at a position now where he's starting to get minutes, so maybe that might be an option. But yeah, for me, I think it's gonna be a 3-5-2, and I think it's gonna be Richarlison and Kudus up top, a midfield three of Sarr, Betancourt, and Polina. Your wing backs obviously are going to be Pedro Porro and Jed Spence, and your back three is going to be Danso, Romero, and Van de Ven. Yeah, but at the end of the day, man, I think this is going to be a very good test for Spurs to find out exactly where they're at right now, and I think it's also going to highlight the deficiencies in the two areas where we know we need to improve, which is at the 10 and at the left wing position. I think if anything, that the match against City is going to highlight that 100%. But again, do I think Spurs are going to win? No, I don't. Maybe if they're able to control the tempo early, and if they start quick, and if they can figure out a way to get the ball in the back of the net within the first 10 minutes and potentially get some of that momentum, maybe. But that being said, me personally, I think how Spurs are going to have to try to get forward again is on the press, is on the high press, and not allowing City just to move the ball up the pitch with ease. They absolutely have to, and I mean have to, be coordinated in the way that they press and the way that they get those high turnovers, because I think that's going to be the only way that Spurs are going to be able to score. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I just don't see a situation where, they're just going to be able to, get up pitch, when they're trying to build up. I just can't see it. Sorry. I just don't see it. So maybe they might be able to get lucky and get a set piece goal. But all right, so we do got some news in. I just do not see a scenario where they're just going to be able to to build up with these. I just don't see it. All right, so I told you guys, we're kind of approaching the hour mark, so I did want to give you guys some information about Christian Romero. And again, Romero signed his extension through the 2029 season, so that means that the captain will remain at N17 for the near future. What has not been reported is what that means as far as weekly wages. And I'm being told right now that that the weekly wage structure is on the high end 220 a week, on the low end 190. So I probably assume that it's that Spurs are probably going to be in that 200 that 200 pound a week range. And of course, he's got bonuses as well too. So from that standpoint, this is exactly the type of deal that Christian Romero has been looking for. The opportunity to get the respect and to be paid in a manner in which he feels that he's worth. So that is the news right there from my guy, who's I guess he's pretty close to those situations. But he is saying that the weekly wage is up to 220 pounds a week. Excuse me, 220,000 pounds a week. So that's absolutely good news. Checking the chat, we have audio. We have the audio. What's going on, audio? Hope you're doing well. How's your week? I hope it's been productive, my guy. So that is absolutely good news. But again, before we get out of here, we are going to talk a little bit about this because of some of the things that we were talking at the top of the show, because it's horrible. It's absolutely embarrassing the way that this played out. And again, man, I just want to know. I want to know exactly what the strategy was, because I have been in this game for quite a long time. And I know how these things operate. And again, your summer window and the strategy which you employed starts after the winter window closes. Because again, you know exactly who's leaving, you know exactly who's going to stick around, and you know exactly the positions in which you need to upgrade. And of course, there are contingencies in place if somebody gets hurt. And this team acts like, they're just operating, from their hip, right? They're operating like, they actually didn't have a plan in place. And I guess that kind of goes to show you the type of talent that's in that football operation, because Johan Lang, again, has fumbled the bag. And it wasn't just with Eze, Morgan Gibbs-White. You look at his, the last summer, not getting the necessary experience in when, this team went full, kids mode, went full youth mode. The winter window where he brought in, knowing that he absolutely needed, when he absolutely needed somebody up front, turns around and gets Timo Werner through the door. And I guess, and of course, I'm, I'm one of Timo's biggest fans. But that being said, it was not a move that was good enough. And so I think we have a body of work now to suggest that Johan Lang is absolutely incompetent. And I think that backed it up with the Eze deal, or the lack thereof. Because again, man, Eberechi Eze teed this up for Spurs. When you agree in principle to a deal and personal terms are met, the only thing that is left is for Spurs to pay the freight to Crystal Palace. And instead of just paying the freight, they tried to give him Richarlison, and they balked at it because obviously it was a low ball. It was obvious a low ball, and that allowed Arsenal to come in. And again, we're losing a player that should be wearing a Spurs shirt right now. It just absolutely baffles my mind, and it doesn't give me hope for the rest of the window. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. I know that a little bit later on Spurs Diehards TTID, I know that I'll probably get into it with Drew and Adrian. And I know those, especially Adrian, I know he absolutely believes that they're going to get a couple more players through the door. But there is no confidence. I have no confidence that they're going to be able to do that. If they're lucky, they might get one. And it's going to have to be at the 10 position. Without a doubt, it has to be at that 10 position. Whether they make a massive move for a dude like Nico Paz. And of course, I would probably assume that there's buyback clauses, sell-on clauses, things like that are going to be attached. But that being said, man, it has to be at that position because we just have absolutely nobody there. At least with the left wing position, you got Batistelle, you have Wilson Odegaard, and if you need him, you have Richarlison in a pinch. At least you have that on the left side. With the 10 position, the cupboard's bare. You absolutely have to upgrade that position, and that's what Eze was going to do for us. But we absolutely just fucked it up. It just, Jesus. I have to calm myself. Listen, I have to calm myself because I get emotional about this. Because again, I have seen bad moves. Okay, trust me when I tell you I've seen bad moves. Historically embarrassing moves that either a club overpaid, player comes in and does absolutely terrible, or he spurns one team for another. But this is absolutely embarrassing because Spurs were on a global stage trying to get this deal across the line, and instead of just paying the freight, they tried to get cute, and it cost them. And now Eberechi Eze goes to the North London Rivals. Seriously, dude, it just gets me pissed off. Let's see. Audio Artisan says, busy as usual. Time's flying. Only 4 months until Christmas. Jesus Christ, dude. Why did you have to say that? Why did you have to bring up Christmas? That's not cool at all, man. He goes on to say that he's not confident about the rest of the way. Yeah, neither am I, man. What's interesting about it, Audio, was the fact that this wasn't just an isolated incident, right? There was the debacle with Morgan Gibbs White, a deal that should have easily been done, because again, when a team triggers a release clause, last time I checked, that was it. And Morgan Gibbs White was sounding like he wanted to come as well too, and it just didn't get done. And now you have the Eberechi as a debacle. I'm trying to remember the last time a player agreed to a personal terms and then ended up not coming because the club just couldn't stop stepping on their dicks. But let's see. He goes, I reckon we're going to keep and end up playing Solomon and Hill. I don't know, man. Maybe, or it's going to be like Regulon of last year, where he's on the team, but he was frozen out and only played when they absolutely needed him. I still think there's going to be loan moves with those two. I would probably assume as we get closer to the window, and there's going to be a lot of teams that missed out on targets, and they will come calling, for Spurs about Solomon and Hill, because I know that Solomon and Leeds would like to run that back again. So I would probably think that Solomon ends up at Leeds again. That's what it kind of sounds like. As far as Hill, I'm sure there's going to be a loan move out there. I can't imagine a scenario where those two are going to be on the roster after the deadline. After the window closes. That's just me. But yeah. As far as tomorrow goes, I don't want to be the guy that that literally just shits on everybody's parade, but I cannot envision a scenario in which Spurs win that match tomorrow. And I'm sure you guys know me well enough that I always want Spurs to win, but the way that I look at this match, I can't conceivably envision a scenario where Spurs are going to be able to get up the pitch with ease in the build-up. I just think that Manchester City has obviously the talent discrepancy is a mile wide, but I just think that in order for Spurs to pull this off tomorrow, it starts with defense. And if anything that we've seen over the course of the last 4 matches, Arsenal, Newcastle, PSG, and Burnley, it looks like this team is going to be very well organized. And I think they're going to be compact. But again, I actually think that they're going to be playing in a 3-5-2 tomorrow. And I think it makes absolute perfect sense, just considering that, I would probably assume that Spurs are going to concede the possession and allow Manchester City to hold the ball, right? The question for me is, how committed are they going to be with the high press? Because where Spurs have had their best success attacking is the counterattack off the turnover. Pressing the ball carriers, putting them in a position where they have to make quick passes or errant passes, and Spurs are able to get possession, off the half turn and try to get into a position where they can play something into the box. And against PSG, they were able to get some whistles, and they were able to score two off of set pieces. That's something that maybe that I can envision. But I certainly don't think that Manchester City is going to allow Richarlison just to camp in the channels and do what he did against Burnley. I don't know, man. I cannot see that. The other question I have is, what that was last week with Richarlison. Was that legit? Was that like a turning of the page? Was that a statement? Was he putting the rest of the league on notice that, this season is going to be vastly different from the last couple, where maybe he's actually going to stay healthy this year? Who knows? But I think that at the end of it, man, again, I think this is going to be a situation where, in order for Spurs to win, they're going to have to be able to play sound defense, and they're still going to have to be brilliant off the ball, be in situations where they're clogging passing lanes and taking away the front of the 18-yard box away from Manchester City, because that's where they like to operate. But that being said, man, the way that Pep Guardiola likes to attack, man, that quick pass, quick touch, make runs into the box, get into space, exploit that space. It's going to be dependent on Spurs to be able to match that intensity and take it away, right? Which is why I think, Jed Spence on that left-hand side is going to pay dividends, because as of right now, he's probably, as far as I guess you can say, of the two fullbacks, I think he's probably the better of the two defensive fullbacks. Not to say Pedro Porro's a slouch in his own right, but that being said, I mean, if Pedro stays far more deeper, he's also a very good on the ball defender as well too. So I just think it's a situation where I think that a 3-5-2 is probably the best course of action for this team. And especially up top too, having both Richarlison and Kudus up there, I think make a lot of sense as well too. I do agree with you, Audio. I think it's going to be a draw. I'm actually going to say, I think, potentially a 2-2 draw. I think City scores, but I don't think they light up the net like they did against Wolves. I think our defense is too good for that. He says, I'd take a draw right now, 100%. He goes on and says, I bet Savio plays and has a worldly game. Why you got to do that, man? Why you got to do that? It's funny, though. It's funny. But by the way, and again, from just to kind of repeat some stuff from the top of the show, Spurs are still interested in Savinho. And what Manchester City is asking is $67.5 million. I think Spurs' last offer was at $60.5. So they're $7 million apart. And again, when you look at the context of where Spurs are at right now in the window, yes, they're desperate. Let's not kid ourselves. Especially after the Eze debacle. Now, this team is in a position where they're probably in a position where they actually have to get some bodies through the door. Now, whether that's Nico Paz, whether that's Savinho, whether that's El Canus, that is yet to be seen. But that being said, I mean, being 7 million pounds apart is not the end of the world, man. And it's a player that they actually can get if they show just a little ambition. For me, do I think Savinho does? Do I think Savinho makes this team better? Yes. How much better? I don't know. That's the truth about it. I like Savinho, but does he make this team? Does he make this team a little bit more even? Sure, but the question is from that left-hand side, what does that mean in terms of strike rate? It's a very good question. I would actually probably have to look up that number. But that being said, I mean, let me know how you guys feel. Do you guys think that Savinho is worth 67.5 million pounds? I don't think so, man. I don't think so. Dan Davenport checks in. What's up, Danny? Good to see you. Hope you've had a good week. He's asking about Adama Traore from Fulham. I like Traore. That dude is buff, by the way. I haven't seen a soccer player that that buff in a very long time. The thing I like about Adama Traore is he's got speed. I think that's obvious. What I don't like about Traore is he's not exactly great with the ball at his feet. He's he's the type of guy that you kind of want to play the ball into and let him use his speed to beat defenders 1v1. From that standpoint, that's awesome. But he's also a right-sided player, though. And we have Mohamed Kudus, who I actually like a little bit better. And I don't think that I don't think getting Adama Traore to play the left-hand side, I don't think the juice is going to be worth the squeeze there. I'd actually rather take Savino. So, all right. Before I end this, I will say that for me, the rest of the window, I mean, damn. I would like to see what I would like to see is a sense of urgency, and if that means desperation, then it is what it is. I think we're at that point where we all absolutely know that Spurs are going to be desperate, and it sucks negotiating a position to desperation because teams understand that, and I think there's going to be teams that are going to be willing to take advantage of that, right? And from the standpoint of a guy like Savino, what I like is the fact is they're not necessarily charging an arm and a leg. Again, they're 7 million pounds off. And I would probably assume that if Spurs want him, they could absolutely get him. Now, whether or not City is in a position where they actually feel like selling him, that's something that I get the impression they don't want to work with. They don't want to deal with Spurs. So from that standpoint, Spurs are going to have to do themselves a favor here. They're going to have to do themselves a solid and step up to the plate and actually make an offer that actually makes City, reconsider. But that being said, I guess it depends on where Spurs value Savino. But we'll see, man. We'll see. Let's see. He goes, at this point, I think we should go big. Let me ask you a question real quick, Yo. Do you think that would be a big move, like Savino would be a big move, or would a guy like Nico Paz be the bigger move? Considering that, at the very least on the left-hand side, we do have Tell, we do have Oda Barron, and a pinch we can use Richarlison out in that position, right? Considering the 10 position, there's nobody there. And I would probably assume that trying to get a central attacker, whether that's Nico Paz or a guy like El Canus, I think that just makes far better sense than, potentially spending 70 million pounds to bring in a guy like Savino. By the way, I'd take him. I'm just saying, I'd take him. But me personally, I think getting that 10 through the door should be the priority right now. That a boy, Danny. That a boy. What about Pulisic? Hell yes. Hell yes. And by the way, if you want to get on my good side, let's talk about U.S. men's national team players. Hell yes. Hell yes. And by the way, if there was a player that was absolutely perfect for Tottenham Hotspur, it's Christian Pulisic, without a doubt, because not only can he play both wings, his natural position is on the left side, right? His ability to cut in on his right foot is something that, there's a reason why, clubs around Europe actually praise Christian Pulisic. Because of his ability on the left-hand side. He does it with the U.S. men's national team, although AC Milan have him on the right side. But that being said, you can't go wrong with a dude like Pulisic. And by the way, if we're talking 70 million pounds, I would have no problem paying Christian Pulisic 70 million pounds. I would love it. I would love my favorite U.S. men's national team player wearing, the shirt of my favorite team. Dan Davenport says we need to sign a few. Yeah, let me ask you this question though, Dan. Do you have any confidence that we can actually get a few players through the door after what happened this summer with the Morgan Gibbs White debacle and now the Eberechi Eze debacle? Do you have any confidence that they're going to be able to get that echelon of player in that price range? I don't. Because I think Spurs have a price range that they're comfortable with, and I think that there's a certain level where it makes them just uncomfortable and they're unwilling to do it. And I think the proof was in the pudding with Eze, right? 68 million. And by the way, that's not a that's not a price that that should make Spurs flinch. I mean, I think they gave Bournemouth 65.5 for Dominic Solanke, and Crystal Palace was asking 68. It shouldn't be a number that should scare them. But of course, they were trying to get cute, and they were trying to pay 20 million less and offering him Richarlison, right? It was it was the deal that there was a principle in place, and all they had to do was meet the freight, and they did. And because of it, we're worse off today than we were last week. So I guess that begs that question, Danny. Do you actually have faith that they're going to be able to bring in those two players in? I'm going to say at least one. We're going to get at least one. Audio Artisan says we could get both, with parentheses over the word could. But in reality, I highly doubt we're going to get both. Let's see. I hope so, but Levy needs to stay out of the transfer dealings. From my understanding, he is. For the most part, a lot of these negotiations have been headed up by Johan Lang and Vinay. More Lang than Vinay, and it's not a surprise that we fumbled two different bags this summer because Johan Lang literally is incompetent. So I think Levy actually has had a hands-off approach this summer. So let's see. I was surprised Liverpool never went for Pulisic when Klopp was at Liverpool manager, as he knew Pulisic from Dortmund. Yeah. See, here's the thing, though, right? Now, if my timeline is correct, I think Klopp was already at Liverpool when he went to Chelsea. But that being said, who was playing the wings for Liverpool during those Klopp years? And I think that's the reason why. I didn't think they didn't necessarily need him. And this was his first opportunity to go to the Premier League. And at the time, the Chelsea head coach, I don't think it was Claudio Ranieri. His name is slipping me right now, but he was the one that really wanted Pulisic. And by the time that deal got done, that coach had already been fired. So he had to deal with Thomas Tuchel, which both of those guys didn't get along. But yeah, what was interesting about it was that had he gone to Liverpool first, let's just say that was the case, I think that he probably would still be at Liverpool. That would be my guess. And I think by this time, too, he probably would have been started. Without a doubt. But that being said, he got his move to AC Milan. But that being said, having a guy like Pulisic with Spurs eases so many problems. That is the dream. Only on FC 26 or on Football Manager will that happen. I highly doubt that Pulisic ends up with Spurs. I just don't think that Johan Lang actually rates American players. I think the only one he rates is Anthony Robinson, to be honest with you. All right, but we're at the hour and 15 mark. I want to remind folks to head over to the old interwebs and check out Stateside Footy on X, and of course on TikTok as well too at Stateside Footy. Because usually on the weekends I do a lot of my TikTok work over there, so it'd be worth kind of heading over there and giving me a little follow over there, but not just follow me on the social medias, but also here on YouTube. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button because we are in a race for 1,000 subs. So let's see. Leao at AC Milan is another player we could go for. I hear Milan are after Vlahovic. Yeah, but the thing about Vlahovic is that Juventus will never, ever, ever deal with AC Milan. It's a Serie A rival. They're not going to allow Vlahovic to go to AC Milan. And the interesting thing about Rafael Leao is the fact that Leao is a striker. He was He was brought up as a striker, and then he got moved to the wing. What I like about Leao is the fact that he's quick. I like his speed and I like his ability on the ball. The problem with that is that he's better suited up top, in my opinion. I just don't think he does. I don't think he does the the creative things that are needed on the wings. I just don't think he actually has that ability. And we have a lot of those players to begin with, anyways. We have a few guys that are strikers / wingers that I don't know, man. I've never really been a big fan of Leao, so it is what it is. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, just to recap, we absolutely shattered this. We absolutely shattered the summer window. Spurs are at an all-time low right now when it comes to the summer transfer window. What started off as promising has hit rock bottom, and it's unfortunate because at one point I was absolutely excited, especially when Mohamed Kudus got done. It looked like that this team was about to, jump to another very good player. And it looked like we were going to carry that momentum to the end of the window. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. And because of the incompetence and a guy like Johan Lang, all of a sudden now we're about a week, just a little over a week until the window closes. There is I don't know, man. I have no idea what their plan is. I have no idea what their strategy is. And I have no confidence whatsoever that they're going to be able to get somebody across the line. Now, I might be wrong. But that being said, it doesn't look like it. It's what we do, mate. Yeah, you're right, audio. But that being said, if Spurs don't, I just don't see where this team finishes at the end of the season. Is it a top 4 team? Not unless they stay healthy and things break so right where they're going to be able to get points. But is this team maybe a 6th place to 8th place team? Yeah. But again, they have to stay healthy. They're gonna have to find creative ways to score goals, because outside of this, man, unless we're playing Leeds or Sunderland or something like that against the upper echelon teams of this league, goals are going to be far and few in between. And I think tomorrow is going to highlight that in a very big way. Again, I just think that in order for us to even get a draw, it starts on the defensive side. And it works its way up the pitch. And again, me personally, I believe that a 3-5-2 is the best course of action tomorrow, especially against a Pep Guardiola attack, and our ability to press high and create turnovers and try to counter off those turnovers, put ourselves in a position where we can get a whistle, maybe get a few good set pieces, try to create a couple corners, and try to capitalize on those. Because I just do not see a scenario where Richarlison's going to equal what we saw last week. I would love it. But that being said, I don't even know what to make of Richarlison at this point. So, me personally, these are the type of games where you need Richarlison to have that carryover. But I don't know, man. Tell me what you guys think, man. Do you think Richarlison's going to be allowed to camp at the Channels tomorrow? I don't think so, man. I don't think so. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. I guess before I go, I'll give you guys my lineups and my score prediction. Again, I think Spurs are going to line up in a 3-5-2. I have Vicario starting in net. My back 3 is going to be Danso, Romero, and Van de Ven. My midfield 5 is going to be Pedro Porro, Polinia, Betancourt, and Sarr, with Jed Spence off the left. And my top 2 are going to be Richarlison and Mohamed Kudus. And I think Solanke comes off the bench. I think Brennan comes off the bench. I can envision a scenario where, depending on how things are playing out, maybe maybe they adjust again. But that being said, I just think that gives Spurs the best chance to at least try to come out with a result. Because again, man, they're going to have to play perfectly on defense in order to keep Manchester City from just absolutely just carving through them. So I'm going to stick with I'm going to go 2-2. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. And I think that would be a great result. Let's see real quick. Let's just do this. All right. Because let's see what we got after this. Because I actually think the schedule is actually so good for Spurs that I have a very good feeling that they're going to get points, right? Absolutely. So after this one, we have Bournemouth at home. Then we travel to West Ham, and then Brighton before coming back against Wolves. Then we get Leeds. We host Villa, and then we travel to Goodison Park, or the new Goodison Park, against Everton. And me personally, when I look at this, I see 15 points out of those matches. I really do. I think there's going to be a couple of draws in there. But that being said, after Manchester City, who's out there that really puts fear in your heart? Brighton, maybe. And if that's the case, man, that kind of just shows you exactly where this team is right now. If you think Brighton puts the fear of God into you, but let's see. It is what we do, man. I love that, man. I really do. Then he goes on to say that I think Richie will have a tough game. Work hard. Any goals? Not sure. Let me ask you, before we go, right? Just one quick question real quick. Who do you think is a better worker? Right? Is it Richie or is it Solanke? Because I think Solanke's the better worker. I think Richie has better movement in the box. That's the difference. That's just me. Yeah, and I agree with you, Audie. It looks like a good run on paper, right? And if they're able to get through this portion of the schedule before they hit November 1st, which is where they get Chelsea, United, Arsenal, Fulham, Newcastle, Brentford, Forest, and Liverpool right there. And I think that is that's December 20th. Then they get Crystal Palace, Brentford before the new year. If they can carry, if they can carry 15 points in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If they can carry 15 points out of the next 7, sitting at 18 points before they hit Chelsea on November 1st, man, I'll be happy. All right, well, that's going to do it for me. I want to thank Dan Davenport. I want to thank Audio Artisan in the chat. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. And again, just some quick programming notes real quick. Today at 5 o'clock, which would be 10 o'clock UK time, I will be on Spurs Diehards TTID. And then, of course, tomorrow morning, we have the Hotspur Watch Along, Spurs versus City. That's going to be at 7:30 Eastern, which I believe is 12:30 UK time. And then tomorrow night, the MLS live stream returns as FC Cincinnati will host NYCFC. So it's going to be absolutely brilliant. I'm just really thrilled that the MLS live stream is back. As Leagues Cup has kind of progressed, those are midweek matches, and of course, because hashtag don't quit your day job, I'm not able to cover those matches. But that being said, I love it when MLS is on the big stage. So that is going to be tomorrow night. And then on Sunday, I believe, is the return of the Premier League show with Dermotron as well too. So it's going to be a very busy weekend here on Stateside Footy. Make sure you hit those subscribe buttons, hit those like buttons, and we will see you tomorrow morning for the Hotspur Watch Along, which comes right after the pre-match build-up on the Irish Hotspurs. So it should be a very big weekend. I'll be everywhere. And again, man, make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons, but also pay attention to the TikTok, because as soon as I'm done, I'm putting one up there. So you might want to head over there. And again, you can find it. You can find that right there. So make sure you handle it. And it's been absolutely great. Big up to you. And I hope everybody enjoys their weekend. Because why wouldn't you? You guys have a great afternoon. Take care.
under fading skies.